He looked normal. That was the problem. Herb Baumeister did not look like a threat. He was a businessman, a husband, and a father living in Indiana. He owned a chain of thrift stores. He lived on a large property known as Fox Hollow Farm. From the outside, his life looked stable, private, and successful. That outward normalcy mattered because it shaped how people interpreted everything around him. When someone fits the picture of a regular neighbor, suspicion tends to drift elsewhere. Routine becomes camouflage. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, men began disappearing in the Indianapolis area. Many were last seen at gay bars and social venues. At the time, these disappearances did not immediately appear connected. Missing person reports came in, but each case looked like its own story. There was no single crime scene, no immediate suspect, no obvious evidence linking one disappearance to the next. And that's the first problem in cases like this. Without a clear connection, time starts working against the investigation. When a case goes cold, it doesn't mean the person is safe. It often means the information that could have helped is slipping away. Memories fade. People move. Records get buried in paperwork. Tips stop coming. The urgency dissolves. For investigators, early leads are everything. They start with the simplest questions. Who saw the person last? Where were they? Who were they with? Did they have plans? Did they leave behind anything unusual? But in missing adult cases, there is often no forced entry, no immediate sign of violence, and no clear trail. Adults can disappear. They can change routines. They can travel. They can cut contact. And that possibility, even when unlikely, can slow the momentum of an investigation. Another complication is social visibility. When the missing person has fewer close contacts, fewer people to advocate for them, and fewer documented routines, there are fewer anchors to investigate, fewer witnesses, fewer timelines, fewer phone calls that generate pressure. So for a long time, the disappearances remained scattered points on a map. Meanwhile, Baumeister's personal life was deteriorating. His marriage was strained. His behavior became more erratic. People close to him noticed emotional distance and unusual habits. But unusual does not automatically translate to criminal. Most families experience private problems that never become police matters. That gray area is another place where suspicion can fail to form. Then, the investigation shifted. In cases that stall, the breakthrough often comes from something simple: a conversation, an offhand remark, a memory that resurfaces, a witness who decides to speak up. And in this case, witnesses began describing the same person. Several people recalled seeing missing men with an individual who seemed quiet, awkward, and unthreatening. Someone who offered rides, someone who suggested going somewhere private, someone who did not look dangerous, which made him easier to trust. That individual was Herb Baumeister. This is the second problem in cases like this. The most effective predators often do not force their way in. They get invited. They rely on assumptions, politeness, and the belief that danger will look obvious. Once a name begins surfacing more than once, investigators pivot. They start looking for overlap. Do these witnesses describe the same car? The same mannerisms? The same places? The same time periods? The same behaviors? They recheck old reports for details that seemed minor at the time. They compare notes across cases. They look for geographic connections and for patterns that only appear once you place everything side by side. And slowly, what looked like separate disappearances begins to resemble one timeline. A key tip eventually directed police attention to Fox Hollow Farm. Investigators requested permission to search the property. While Baumeister was away, his wife consented to a limited search. This kind of consent search matters because it creates a legal path forward without waiting for a warrant. It also often happens in the narrow window before a suspect realizes how close investigators are. Searches like this are methodical. Investigators don't just wander. They document. They photograph. They mark locations. They look for signs that the property contains something that does not belong. Disturbed ground, unusual debris, clothing, personal items, and any trace that suggests human remains. And what they would find on the land would change the case entirely. In the wooded areas surrounding Fox Hollow Farm, investigators discovered human bone fragments scattered across the property. The remains were weathered and fragmented, suggesting exposure over time. In that moment, the disappearances were no longer just missing persons files. They were homicide investigations. Forensic work then became the engine of the case. Identification, when possible, depends on careful recovery, documentation, and analysis. The goal is to answer the most basic questions. How many individuals are present, who they might be, and what the remains can reveal about time and circumstance. With multiple victims indicated, investigators now believed they were dealing with a serial offender who had been operating undetected. At that point, the case enters a new phase. The focus shifts from "where did he go?" to "who did this, how, and why?" And now there was a primary suspect with a known property connected to the evidence: Herb Baumeister. This is where part 1 ends, because from here, the story becomes a race. The attempt to bring a suspect into custody, to preserve evidence, and to answer questions that time has already made harder. And in the next part, you'll see how quickly that race can end, and how many answers can disappear with it. Part 2. With the discovery at Fox Hollow Farm, investigators were no longer trying to connect a few scattered dots. They were looking at a larger picture, one that suggested years of activity, multiple victims, and a suspect who had blended into ordinary life. This is the moment when investigators move fast. Evidence can degrade, witnesses can disappear, and suspects, once they sense the spotlight, can run. Baumeister was identified as the primary suspect. Investigators now had to do several things at once. They had to expand the search, documenting every relevant area of the property. They had to preserve the chain of custody for evidence. They had to coordinate across agencies and compare missing persons reports against what was being recovered. And they had to build a case that could stand in court, which means confirming connections through reliable documentation, not just suspicion. At the same time, they had to find Baumeister. But before police could make an arrest, Baumeister fled. His vehicle was later located in Canada. Not long after, his body was discovered. He had taken his own life. With his death, the criminal case effectively ended. There would be no interrogation, no trial, no full account. The suspect who could have confirmed details and timelines was gone. Authorities later concluded that Baumeister was responsible for at least 11 murders. Some investigators believe the number could be higher. The true total will never be known, and that uncertainty is one of the most haunting aspects of this case. Not because the numbers are abstract, but because each missing detail represents a life and a family left with incomplete answers. When a suspect dies before arrest, investigators are left with a different mission. Instead of building a courtroom narrative, they focus on reconstruction. What can the evidence prove? What can witnesses clarify? What can records reveal? What can be responsibly concluded? But reconstruction has limits. Evidence that might have existed years earlier may be gone. Physical traces degrade. Witness memories become less precise. Places change. Routines shift. The farther you get from the original events, the harder it is to fill in the blanks. This case also forced uncomfortable questions about the earlier years. How were so many disappearances overlooked? Why did it take time to connect the cases? How did someone living such an ordinary life remain invisible for so long? Investigators and psychologists point to a pattern that appears in many hiding in plain sight cases. First, there is the power of appearances. A person with a stable job, a family, and a home carries an unspoken credibility. People assume responsibility. They assume predictability. They assume safety. That assumption is not logical. It is social. It is learned. Second, there is the complexity of missing adult cases. Without immediate evidence of violence, the early stages of investigation can slow. Time passes. And when time passes, the chance of connecting cases decreases. Third, there is the role of social visibility. If the victims are not treated with urgency, the lack of pressure allows a pattern to continue unnoticed. A predator doesn't need to be brilliant. They only need the system to move slowly. In this case, normal life protected Baumeister. It protected him through routine, through the belief that danger will look obvious, through the quiet idea that evil belongs somewhere else, not in a neighborhood that looks like every other neighborhood. And that is the most unsettling part, because the lesson is not that you should fear everyone around you. The lesson is that assumptions are not evidence. Normal is not a defense. Routine is not proof of safety. It is simply an appearance. The story of Herb Baumeister is not only about what happened at Fox Hollow Farm. It is about how easily a community can accept a surface-level picture, and how long that picture can delay scrutiny. Sometimes, the most dangerous people do not stand out. Sometimes, they look just like everyone else. This is Everyday Killers, Ordinary People, Unthinkable Crimes. Subscribe for more true crime stories hiding in plain sight.